Welcome to Toxicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged, the place where we talk about all things substance abuse, recovery, and mental health, with guests offering varying perspectives and viewpoints. Hosts Joseph Gordo and Jason Cabello share about their addiction and recovery and other serious subject matter through lighthearted yet candid conversation.
I want to intro though.
Yeah, okay, that's your prerogative.
Hey, everybody.
La, 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 la.
La, la, la. The tip of the teeth, the tongue, the toes.
Bumblebee, bump.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Toxicology, the latest and greatest podcast on the internet about mental health, addiction, recovery.
Possibly
music.
the most infrequent, too.
Most infrequent. No, well, we're much more frequent than many podcasts.
Are we? Okay.
For sure. Yeah, we're fairly consistent. I am your host, Joseph Gordo, LCDC, and this is my co-host with the most, Mr. Marcel Cabello. What did Gabby say to you when you were walking out the door today?
I look like a French sailor.
So you threw on the jacket.
I threw on the jacket, but the weather calls for a jacket today.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's misty.
So I walked out of the house. I dropped off my kid at school today, right, Ella. She was wearing a sweatshirt. She was like, "Why are you wearing short sleeves?" And I was like, because it's okay for short sleeves. And she takes off her sweatshirt and she's like, "I'm not wearing sleeves either." And I was like, "But see, you're going to go play outside at some point today. I will be inside of buildings all day. It's different." And so she didn't listen to me and she just stuffed her sweatshirt in the backpack. And yeah, parenting.
Maybe you should take a page from Ella and go play outside later.
Because I'm so pale.
And you're wearing linen, too. So, I mean, that just calls for outdoor fun.
You know, I really like linen shirts.
Linen is, I'm going for a vacation dad look this season.
Yes.
And I'm stocking up on my linen shirts, my Tommy Bahama.
Do you put that much thought into
Yes.
your aesthetic?
I really do.
Yeah. Well,
But you know what? I buy a lot of stuff, but I usually just wear the same couple things anyway.
yeah, I feel like the pants that I always think are Jinkos.
Mm-hmm.
Like I see those fairly often.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll find something that fits, and I'll buy like 6 pair, like every color. So I have probably like 5 of the pants.
That's how I am with the Vans.
Yeah.
Yeah. But listen, these are gifts of recovery.
They are.
You know what I mean? Like you were talking about that jacket that you've had since 1998.
I have had this jacket since 1998 when I moved to Atlanta, and I was living pretty much between Chicago and Atlanta, actually.
Yeah.
So I needed a jacket, and I went to Banana Republic and bought this jacket, and it's been a staple of my look ever since. And it's been, quality never goes out of style, Joseph.
Never.
Never.
So I should bust out my members only jackets from the early 90s.
I think that's on a dip right now. You might want to hold off for another 3 years, and then
it'll be on a come up,
and then you'll be able to wear it again. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I'm a trend forecaster.
I could never afford a members only jacket when I was. We were very poor,
right?
And members only jackets and the starter jackets, with all
jackets.
the like the Charlotte Hornets.
People were getting robbed all over South Florida for I guess any major metropolitan city, people were getting like stuck up for those.
A wave of jacket crime hit the United States.
Cold criminals were looking for jackets. So when you were in your active addiction, did you have what was your wardrobe like when you were in your active addiction?
Jinko jeans. So if I was dope sick and like just trying to hustle or just go get a fix, it was Jinko jeans, and I remember I had an Old Navy fleece pullover hoodie that I would wear with no shirt under.
Cigarette holes in it?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, usually people with opiate habits will have cigarette burns in their clothes because they nod off while smoking cigarettes.
And only you can prevent forest fires.
Yeah.
So that was my dope sick aesthetic. My non-dope sick aesthetic was the Jinko jeans with a pearl snap button down with the sleeves rolled up.
I like pearl snaps.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And then I worked as a waiter and I needed cash every day. So very often my aesthetic was just black pants and a white button down because I worked every day.
Quick money.
Yeah.
So I have actually Gabby, when we started dating, they're called my heroin pants because this is a good one. So I had these sweatpants that I cut into shorts. And oh man, this is embarrassing. So in my little bag of tricks, I had like nail clippers. So if I couldn't find cotton, because I didn't smoke cigarettes because that shit's addictive.
That's some dope fiend logic right there.
No, I did smoke cigarettes before, but I actually quit smoking when oxys went from like $5 to $12 pretty much overnight. No, I couldn't afford it. I'm
Inflation.
Like, I'm no dummy. I'm gonna save my money for the good stuff. So I would have these. I had these pants, these Vulcan pants. Maybe I'll wear them next time. And so if you smoke cigarettes, you always have cotton at the ready.
Yeah, pull it off the filter. Yeah.
So I would just take little pieces off the elastic band, clip it up, and that's what I would use for a filter for my dope.
Oh no!
No. And crusty socks. Ugh. So me and Gabby, I summed up our relationship because for those of you who have watched the show before, I am in an age gap relationship. When Gabby and I started dating, or when we met, she was 18 and I was 42, and she raised me as her own.
This is wrong.
It's true.
Y'all are such a good couple, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. She raised me. She's known me my entire adult life.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I was a fucking mess. I was, I didn't know how to do a goddamn thing.
Yeah.
And I just bought a car.
Yes, that's right. You are a 2-car family that live in that dink life.
Yeah, total.
Yeah,
I love the dink life. I think we're gonna keep it. We kind of had baby fever, and we bought a fish tank.
There you go.
Yeah,
some little betas.
No, actually, we're getting shrimp. Right, we have a shrimp tank, and we've already named them collectively fajitas.
All the shrimp are fajitas.
Yeah, so like a tribe.
I'm trying to find a good transition to our guest.
Speaking of fajitas.
No. Earlier, Jason used the word dope. And what I would have said had he not jumped into the shrimp fajitas was, speaking of dope, at Recovery Unplugged, when clients are leaving, we do an exit survey just to see, how was everything? Did you like the food? Did you like your counselor? Shout out any staff that made a big impact on your recovery. And the woman with us today is very often described as being dope in those surveys.
Shit.
Yeah. So our guest today is a woman in recovery. She is someone who, one of many folks who made the fatal mistake of leaving Recovery Unplugged and then coming crawling back 6 months later saying,
no. Great resignation. Look at him now.
But she is somebody who within Recovery Unplugged has I've gotten to watch grow from being a tech to being a counselor to running alumni to where now there's 3 departments that are constantly can we get Brittany in our department?
Marketing department's next.
Marketing department wants Brittany O'Malley. The clinical department wants Brittany O'Malley. Ashley threatens to cut anyone who comes near Brittany O'Malley. The client.
So wait, who's our guest?
Oh! So without any further ado, today's guest, Miss Brittany O'Malley.
Oh. Hello.
That's a good. Welcome to the show, Brittany.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
This morning when I was driving in, I was like, I get to start my day off with Brittany O'Malley. little cup of sunshine.
Is that how you're known around the office?
Just that I'm always smiling.
Yeah.
And bubbly. And I have clients ask me all the time, do you ever have a bad day? I just say when I'm driving to work.
I'm having a bad day right now. Leave me alone.
Until I get there, I change. But I thought the same thing. I thought I'm going to be in Joseph's presence. This is my second time this month, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
The early morning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Jason, of course.
Well, you were at the other thing too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's right. South by
Doing
Southwest
your
event.
thing.
Yeah. South by Southwest event. That was fun.
By the way, I was messaged today by a LPC student who heard about us on KUT and wants to work for us. So you're having an impact with your KUT thing.
I want to give a shout out to KUTX, one of Recovery Unplugged's partners. I have been getting so much feedback. Like, I'll go to the skate park and people who I don't even know that I've talked about my job with will be like, hey, don't you work for Recovery Unplugged? Like, I hear you guys on KUTX all the time now.
Yeah.
So shout out for all the extra coverage that KUTX gave us. Austin radio. You can listen, and you don't have to live in Austin to listen to it. Probably one of my favorite radio stations, honestly.
That's great.
Honestly.
It's great. But to the guests.
Anyway.
Oh, hey, I'm here.
No, it just to catch our guests up. So we live in Austin, Texas, and there was just a South by Southwest was just recently, and we partnered with KUTX to be at this really cool showcase that just happened to start at 7 a.m.
Perfect for me.
And we got to meet a lot of really cool people. And one of the things that's awesome, and I think Brittany got to experience for the first time, is there's lots of recovery events, but these were non-recovery events. So it's really cool getting to talk to folks who have no idea about recovery. And I mean, I think sometimes in recovery, like, we feel like we're very different from everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then when we go to an event like that, right, how many people came up to us and were like, oh, like, my brother just picked up 5 years and,
my son is in recovery, or
Yes.
they're really quick to try to relate the lingo with us. Like, oh, he has 9 months and, he's learning about self-will.
Yeah. Still
He's
running
taking it one day at a time. And,
They're very gentle with us.
yeah.
And I told him you just got to let go and let God. And,
Think.
yeah. But you can spot recovery people in the wild. I was at lunch yesterday and I saw a guy that had a shirt that said let God, but the let go was in a different font. So it was like, let go, let God. And it was just two like kind of trucker looking guys sitting together and eating Indian food in the middle of the day. And I was like,
I know you.
Yeah, I know exactly who you are.
Yeah. I know your story.
There needs to be a secret, like a wink or nod or something.
Yeah, we need a handshake.
Yeah.
So, Brittany, from humble beginnings in Kerrville, Texas. Were you born in Kerrville?
I was born in Phoenix, but my family moved to Kerrville when I was 2. So raised.
Okay. And Kerrville, for our listeners that don't know, Kerrville is kind of like recovery capital here in Texas.
There is the Kerrville Syndicate.
Yes.
Yes.
You guys have heard me talk about it. So I'm really curious, growing up, if you had any awareness of Kerrville as a recovery town.
Sure. I think I always look back and reflect and think it was always an ominous warning because I was unaware what was going on. I will say probably when I was in middle school, not even middle school, it was 6th grade. Right across from the building, there was a club. It was named 720
The 720 Club.
And in my mind, club meant like party. This is where people go and like dance and drink. So when I would get out of school around, of course, 3:30, I remember looking across the street and seeing people with styrofoam cups, smoking, old. And in my mind, I mean, I hadn't, dabbled with anything. I was just like, that's a bad place. I can't believe they're doing that in the middle of the day,
Smoking
so
cigarettes.
And you fast forward years later, I'm there and I'm like, oh, this is AA,
That's right, because we would all park across the street at the school.
Yes.
You went to that school.
Right across with children, like so.
And what's wild is, so from that school, I'd say like within a 2-mile radius, there's the 720 Club, which is like an all day, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. kind of clubhouse. and at least half a dozen sober houses. And then 2 other spots where there was meetings, but it wasn't like all day clubhouses. Just near this middle school.
You're gonna have to. We're gonna have to go on a day trip to Kerrville, and I'll bring the camera, and we could do a little.
I'm going to Kerrville on Saturday.
Same.
It's Saturday.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm gonna go speak at a meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What meeting? I'll go.
The HA. They're doing like a little event, like from 5 to 7 or something.
Yeah, I'll be there this weekend.
Yeah. Cool. Good. I'm nervous. I haven't been to Kerrville in a minute.
Yeah.
So you had some awareness, but it was like
I did, and now when I think about it too, like when I turned 16, I think I was a sophomore going into junior year. There was this kid in high school. He was 18. He was like the oldest one in our high school, and I just thought he was so cool. And he was very much a loner. And I remember one day after school, he invited me to his house, and I said, "Where are your parents?" Because he had all these roommates. And, you know, he was telling me, "Oh, these are my friends." And looking back now, it was a halfway house.
Which house was it?
I have no idea. But I do remember like it all started clicking as I started getting sober because I'm like, who was that guy?
Yeah.
And where did he go? You know? So yeah, there was little moments that it was just surrounding me. I always say Kerrville is like an island because all the little treatment centers are all surrounding it and everybody ends up living there for some time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's where I sobered up. I spent close to 3 years there, I think, before I left. Poor Harper. Harper was born in Kerrville at Sid Peterson Memorial. Anyway, so, you know, I know you got sober pretty young.
Yeah, I got sober at 26 years old, and then prior to that, had 2 years prior to that. So 23, I got sober, but I relapsed after 2 years.
Yeah.
And those 2 years were, I can say that I actually followed I actually had a taste of what recovery was. And so prior to that, I've had tons of relapses, just never knew what the program had given to others. I didn't experience that at all. So yeah, I got sober at 26 and been sober ever since. So a little bit over 7 years.
Right on.
I didn't even think you were 26 years old, to be honest.
Like right now?
Yeah.
Well, I'm 33.
Well, I'm saying I didn't think you
Oh.
were.
He's saying you look very young.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
I thought you might have been like 25, 20
Wow,
years
thanks.
old.
So when I met you, so 2016 was when our youth started, but we met at the Arbor,
Yes.
which would have been like 2013, 2014.
Yes.
In Georgetown?
Well, I was running the sober house, so I would come to the staffing meeting.
Yeah.
I remember
Because
seeing
I ran all the
Joseph.
outpatient stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I know.
That's wild.
I've been around a long time, Joseph.
You have too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're just talking about it. I mean, obviously. So let's rewind a little bit because like we're already talking about like you being sober and whatever. Let's get to what the people want to hear.
Okay.
The war stories.
Oh,
The
great.
sordid details. No, I mean, first off, like, what was your family life like growing up? You know, good family, everybody together.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, I had 2 great parents. I mean, both of them came from very poor backgrounds, tons of siblings, alcoholic family, our parents. So their mission was not to raise my brother and I that way. So, you know, they did the best they could, but a lot of unconditional enabling love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up with not needing much. They work their butts off. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
They work their asses off.
Yeah. Were you the baby?
I was not. My brother is.
You're the oldest.
And both me and my brother both are in recovery. They both got 2 wonderful children that are alcoholics and addicts. So double winners. But you know, I did grow up with not needing anything. But you know, just like everybody else says, like I just always had like something wrong, something I couldn't communicate, something where I didn't fit in. Always felt different, isolated. My parents had a lot of strict rules, and I had a quinceañera, so I already had these strict rules because when you're a girl leading up to a quinceañera, you have all these rules. Like, you can't cut your hair, you can't wear makeup, you have to continue to embrace your girlhood. You can't date, you can't talk to boys. I mean, there was just all these rules, and no one explained to me why I had these rules on me. I just knew I got to wear this white dress when I was 15. So I broke all the rules because I just felt like I felt trapped and felt like I couldn't be myself. And so by the time I turned 15 and had the quinceañera, I remember feeling extremely guilty because my parents worked their little butts off to make it happen. And I remember people whispering and telling my mom, she's dating, she's doing this, and, she's smoking weed. And I remember my mom being in denial because, that's just how my family handled my addiction. And so today, my family are my friends. I love my mom and dad, but it took a while to get to that kind of relationship with them because for a long time they were the bad guys, always hovering over me. That's why I had to move away from Kerrville because, they were the helicopter parents. Anytime I went out or did something, I knew once I walked out of that house, my parents were all set up waiting for me.
Yeah. Well, and Kerrville's the kind of town, like even before like Find My Friends, right?
Right.
Someone was going to see you somewhere.
Correct.
And it was going to get back to them.
100%.
So I'm really curious because I look super white and then my last name's Gordo.
Sure.
And then people are like, wait, so what? And I always struggled with like, I'm like super Mexican,
sure.
but I super don't look Mexican.
Yeah, I get that.
And you present as Hispanic, and then your last name's O'Malley.
Hey,
did you ever have any stuff like that, like identity stuff with yourself around that?
Absolutely. Well, for the longest time, I really did think I was Irish, and I thought. I thought that's why I drank, I'm like, oh, this makes sense, like
give me a
this
Guinness
is my purpose, and as I got older, my grandpa passed away, but, he had written this memoir saying, guys, I was running from the mafia. I had to change our last name. This is not your last name. Your last name's Manteca. Manteca, something like that. I really am very disconnected from any last name because I'm a woman, I'm going to change it anyways one day. Yeah, so my mom's side of the family, extremely Hispanic. Her last name is Ontiveros. And my dad, his dad was, I think, German, and his mother was half white and Mexican. So yeah, for so long, I had this identity in my mind that I'm an Irish girl. That's why I'm short, that's why I drink a lot. But until like my grandpa came out and told us all that, it was like, oh, makes sense, And people made fun of me all the time, like, and especially my mother's mom, my grandma, she got mad at me because all my friends in my quinceañera were like all white.
Little white girls doing the waltz dance with the chambelán and the
like,
whole thing.
Who are? So I had to go find the most Mexican man or boy in the high school to stand with me, so my grandma could be happy. Ronnie, hey Ronnie, he had very dark skin, so it was perfect.
Shout out Ronnie.
So yeah, I definitely had. I still do till this day. I still do have that question of like, what's your ethnicity? What are you?
Right.
Yeah.
You're Brittany.
Yeah, I'm Brittany.
So it sounds like, you had the kind of that internal condition that a lot of alcoholics and addicts talk about, irritable, restless, discontent,
Yes.
whatever it is. And you first started to fix it by like being rebellious, right? So
Yes.
when did you discover that alcohol and drugs was a much better way to fix?
Absolutely. I always say like, both my parents do not struggle with alcoholism or drug addiction problems, but family, their moms, their dads, their sisters. So I always knew.
Because they're Irish.
Yeah, because they're Irish. It all made sense. But I do remember my first drink, and it was a Smirnoff Ice, and I was an alcoholic from the beginning. I remember exactly how I felt. It all, just like I'm saying, it all connected. Like my soul connected with my mind and my heart and my personality, that I thought that's what would enhance it. And I all of a sudden felt comfortable in my skin, and it became like this obsession that I didn't know how to describe. Now knowing it was an obsession, I didn't know it was an obsession because all I kept thinking about is if only I had that drink, I would be able to sit here comfortably. And that was my goal throughout my alcoholic career, is to find that feeling. So that was probably when I was 14, and my friend Tiffany Rangel, her dad gave us some
put Tiffany on blast.
I hate Tiffany Rangel. I had to confirm my Hispanic friends.
Real quick before we get into Tiffany, I think you said something really important there where you were talking about like, all of a sudden like everything connected and like my soul. And I've heard it described a bunch of different ways, this feeling of the one that I like is all of a sudden I was able to breathe with my full lung capacity. And I think that's what a lot of normies don't understand about alcoholism and addiction. Is like, it's not necessarily that we like to be fucked up all the time,
right,
or that like being drunk is our favorite thing. It's that, without something in our body, I didn't feel like human.
Right.
Really.
It was like a completion. It was like the missing piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
And now this is who I am. This is how I'm supposed to feel every day for the rest of my life.
Like it just feels right.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like this is it.
Now I'm ready to start living.
Right.
Like that's how I felt when I had my first
sense.
when I had my first opiate. I was just like, so I knew that it was trouble too. Like as complete and as whole as I felt, I was like, I'm gonna need this.
Yeah,
every single day for the rest of my life.
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt.
So your friend Tiffany hooks you up with a Smirnoff Ice.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Tiffany's dad.
Yeah, man, he was great. Except like we were only allowed 2, and the second one, I remember feeling the little like, wow, I am buzzing, and I'm like, Tiffany, call your dad, get more.
Oh.
And she's like, what? Like, we're having a little good time, let's make popcorn. And I'm like, excuse me, like,
fuck your popcorn.
I need more. And she called her father, and he's like, no, you guys are fine. Like, just relax, pretty much. And I remember being extremely irritable because I felt like it wasn't complete.
And you couldn't even enjoy see, that's the other thing that normies don't realize. It's not like, I have my drink now. Now I could relax. It's like, I finally have my drink. Now I need to get more and more and more and more.
Yes.
And it's never.
What do they say? I take a drink and then the drink takes a drink.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yes.
One's too many and thousands never enough.
Oh man, how many cliches can we get into one episode?
One day at a time.
One day at a time.
No.
Let God.
So, you discover this feeling, right? Like that alcohol fixes that thing, whatever we want to call it, right? Where does it progress from there? Like, how does it start to show up in the rest of your life?
And the thing I've learned with reflecting back on my life and is that a lot of my alcoholism is a lot of alcoholic thinking and a lot of alcohol behavior. And so although alcohol was not around me at my reach at all points, I learned how to manipulate and get creative with my lying to be able to find the alcohol. So I wasn't drunk all the time through high school, but it was as if that was it was like playing a game to get there. And having to hide and lie became my second language that I learned in high school is lying,
And the calculation. Oh my God, the calculation that goes into keeping whatever
witty,
habit
clever,
is
intelligent.
Yeah. Every move, it's chess. It's like every single thing you do is getting you closer to
yes.
that.
So like even if you're not drunk all the time, your life is consumed.
Correct.
By the pursuit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Knowing that I have 2 parents that monitor me all the time. So, yes, it was like playing chess. Like, okay, if I spend this much time with them, then they'll let me go out Saturday. And then I'll say I stayed the night at Bobby Jane's house. And then, I'll have her mom call.
Shout out Bobby Jane.
I made that name up so I wouldn't blast anybody anymore. So, and yeah, it was just a lot of all that kind of just moving. The thing too was that my mother and father, I know they knew, they just didn't know how to bring it up because that's a scary thing. You know, they don't want to admit that their child is doing things, you know.
Very, very Mexican of them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I had a relapse once where I planned it out and carried out the plan for about a month. And so at the time,
Genius.
I had no car. My mom thought I was sober, and she would take me to an AA meeting every day. And she would give me $2 every day. One for the basket, one for the coffee. So I would, but you know that the AA meetings, like if you don't have the money for the coffee.
Newcomer coffee.
Yeah, they'll give you the coffee. So I would help make the coffee and grab a cup and then just put $1 in the basket and put the other dollar away. So over the course of 20 days, I had myself $20. And then one day she had a monthly board meeting where she couldn't pick me up from the AA meeting. She could drop me off, but she couldn't pick me up. And I would just get a ride home from people. But once I had the $20, and she dropped me off, and I just took off walking and literally walked like 4 miles to show up on the doorstep of a drug dealer that I hadn't seen in 2 years. And just knocked on it.
Was he still doing his thing?
Yeah.
Oh, good for him.
But he wasn't he was not a come to my house drug dealer. He was a meet you in the car drug dealer. So like I showed up at his door and he was like, "What?"
But usually when they see a former customer, there's a little bit of, well, okay.
No. He's like, "Where you been?
Right.
Are you sure you want to do this?" Like,
Sure, like
you got a year. He's like, "You're already fucking up, bro."
what a caring person.
Yeah. He twice he's convinced me not to relapse. Shout out JJ in Laredo. And then I walked home and I was like, I'm not going to shoot dope. I had made my mom buy me Visine a couple days before because I had worked.
Oh, it's genius.
So cleaned out the Visine bottle, made the little, because I was going to shoot up, going to snort it. And then I just waited until about 10 o'clock at night when it was meticulously thought out and planned. I had an excuse for the guys at the meeting why I wasn't there that day. Like it was.
How did it pan out?
I mean, I got high, and then I stayed high for like 6 months, and then I went to Starlight.
So pretty well.
Yeah. Good run. Good 6
But like
months.
that's the level of planning.
Right.
Correct.
Execution.
And I think we don't talk about that so much because we're so close to talking about like, this is how I got drunk, this is how I got high, this is what I use. But it's that thinking that's like, dude, even without it, I was still planning and designing how I was going to get there.
Yeah, I would say I worked the equivalent of like 3 full-time jobs when I was getting high too.
Yeah.
It was just so much.
Hard.
We were really hard.
And it's exhausting.
It's very exhausting.
But it still drives me crazy when somebody be like, if you could just put that much effort
into your recovery, then you would soar.
It's like, yeah. But, or when they talk about like, you spent this much money on drugs, certainly you could get your license back. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't have to like rob people. I'm not going to rob somebody to go like fix my driver's license or get back into school. So, I mean, unless you want me to.
So, Brittany, now looking back, like you can identify that it was problematic from day one. But in real time, like when did you start to realize like this is not?
Oh man. So I love alcohol, and I started realizing that was a problem probably when I moved out of the house and I moved to San Antonio. My parents, I mean, again, they had it all set up for me. The apartment. My mom got me into community college. Go mom. She wrote a little essay for me.
ACC?
No, I went to Palo Alto.
Oh, okay.
My Mexican roots, and then I worked, she helped me get the job at Chili's. That was my first real job.
I worked at Chili's too.
I was a host.
I am blacklisted. I can never work at Chili's ever again.
No.
Did you hear that, Chili's?
What'd you do?
I think the company's Darden that owns Chili's. I can work for no Darden company.
Oh, man.
Oh, so you can't work for who else? Olive Garden, right?
Were you giving away free?
I was also fired from Olive Garden, yes.
Wow, I worked there too. Wow, did I follow your footsteps?
Wow. Are you guys the same person? I've never seen you guys in the same room at the same time.
Except for right now. Right now.
Yes. So I got into my first car accident in San Antonio, and when I knew when the police asked me, do you want to call your parents to come pick you up or do you want to go downtown with me? I remember saying, it was 4 a.m, I will go downtown with you. And she said, okay, are you sure? Like, I'm giving you this chance to like call your family. And in my mind, I'm like, if my family finds out my life, I can't do this anymore.
Double life.
And, you know, she let me sit in back of the cop car for some time. I watched her pour the Goldschlager on the lawn. And I remember what are you doing? You're wasting it, you know? And
that's real gold.
It was, yes, it was real gold.
There's enough Goldschlager. There's enough gold in a bottle of Goldschlager to get another bottle of Goldschlager.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I thought it was
I'm
cool.
calculating now.
When I said when I would go to a party and pull out my Goldschlager, people would be like, dude, why'd you bring a whole bottle of liquor? There's tons of alcohol here.
Like, this is mine.
I'm like, dude, I'm cool. You know, and I'm the alcoholic.
There was a moment where Goldschlager was like
the cool thing.
Cool thing.
Yeah. You remember saving all the empty bottles?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crown Royal bag.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I ended up telling the police officer, please call my family. I was ready. And of course, 4 a.m, they wake up, probably terrified, drove to San Antonio. And yeah, sure, they walked into my apartment and they saw my life. Everything was accompanied with weed, everything. So I smoked weed before I started drinking. Never realized that was the problem too. I just can't smoke weed successfully. But yeah, they just saw my whole entire life in that apartment and threatened to financially cut me off if I do not come home. And I remember they gave me like a day and I still was very contemplated stage. And I decided to come back to Kerrville, but I remember my dad asking me in the truck on the way back to Kerrville. He was like, Brittany, what are your goals in life? What do you want? And I'm like, I remember crying and I was like, Dad, I just want to go to a party and have one drink in a red Solo cup and go home. And he's like, that is sad. And I'm like, but that's what I really wanted. Yeah. I really wanted to drink normally. Mm-hmm. I could see the consequences. And when I moved back to Kerrville, it just started progressing even more where that was I didn't even have a chance to go to treatment. I got 3 DWIs one weekend after another.
And so was Kerrville like that classic, like,
here's
all the people I went to high school with who are still all hanging out with each other, going to the same bar.
That and also people who had relapse.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I ever heard conversations of recovery. You know, people telling me like, I went to treatment. And in my head, I'm like, what is treatment? You know, in my mind, I'm like, they must be doing some really hard drugs. You know, I'm just a little cocaine there, a little, Adderall there, but always back to the alcohol. And I started meeting people who were like, telling me they were going to get sober. And I'm like, that's good for you, man. But I was hanging out with my people who went to high school with me that hung out, who lived in Kerrville. Never felt like I fit in, like I was supposed to be there. But yeah, so my first DWI, that was a terrible wreck. Parents bailed me out. I somehow manipulated them to give me a car.
The next weekend,
I said, I need to go to a meeting. How am I going to do this? Mom gave me the car. I was drunk. They pulled me over. Second DWI, I did not call my parents because I was so shameful. I got out on PR bond. I walked home, and I don't know how long I walked, but I live out in the like kind of boonies and on Rancho Road, if you know where that's at.
Out towards Medina.
Yeah, like out there. So I walked home. Didn't tell my family what was going on. Let them know that I needed ended up finding out, obviously, because they needed the car. Somehow convinced them later on that week I needed the car again. Got in a wreck. And got my third DWI and stayed in jail. Parents bailed me out, but I had to go back for 10 days and then get sent to a correctional facility for women in San Angelo, Texas.
So before we get to that, I think I really want to touch on the wanting to have one drink in a red Solo cup and go home. And like this moment of desperation and your father asking you, what is it that you want in life? And Your answer is to drink like a normal person. People who don't understand that, it's really hard to explain that this one thing that is ruining my life is the only thing that I need to do a little bit of work on so then I could get on with my normal life. And it's such a merry-go-round. Because I think I went to, rehab for 5-6 years trying to learn how to use successfully. And it's that feeling of I just need to figure out the right dose, the right mixture of things.
Yes.
If I get a prescription and only take the prescribed dose, but the thing is, if it's never going to work for you if that's your line of thinking.
Right.
Because normal people don't go to rehab and think, oh my God, well, what if my kid gets married and, I can't have a glass of champagne at their wedding?
Right.
And it's
You don't even have a kid.
You don't even have kids,
Right.
and it's like normal people don't think. If you're thinking like this, you might be an alcoholic or you might be a drug
when someone's
addict,
asked, what's your goal? A normal person says, finish school, like.
Yeah. No, at one point in my life, my goal was to find a strategy to not do heroin. You know what I mean? It was like, if I take the Xanax with this, I won't do heroin.
Perfect.
How do you wake up in the morning and I can just see like a detective board? How do I not do heroin today?
Right.
And I think it's important to point out though, like for the people at home, like being in recovery is not that. Like it's not thinking to yourself, how do I not drink today?
Right.
There's definitely a period in the early days when it feels like that, right? But you learn, this is how you go to work without doing heroin. And then,
in the beginning, it kind of is.
Yeah.
It's like,
but when you get to a place where you have, some emotional recovery or whatever you want to call it, once you're solid in your recovery, it is not a concern anymore. You can get to a point where there is no battle anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
My mother always says, I know you work hard every day to not drink and use. And I'm like, Mom, I don't.
It's like, do I?
And then I kind of want to take it because I'm like, yeah, Mom, I am, man. You have any money? My old self wants to come out and be the victim. But honestly,
fooled her.
Yeah. Hey, Mom. But honestly, it's not a struggle.
Yeah.
It's
and
not.
at one point, it was this impossible thing.
Yes.
How do you fucking do that?
Right.
Thanks for bringing that up, Jason. That was good.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So three DWIs. You're in San Angelo. Oh man,
Sand and Jello.
Yeah, so many. I know lots. That's where they have the Safe P program.
Yeah.
So a lot of people end up in.
A lot of meth.
Yeah, a lot of meth.
The oil industry is near there.
And Los Lonely Boys.
Oh yeah.
From San Angelo.
Yes.
So what is the program that you're talking about?
Safe P. It's a jail it's a long-term jail program, which is meant for rehabilitation. I think once you get 6 months, if you're doing well, you start to leave the jail to go have a job and come back, and it's like that, yeah.
Like a work release, sort of.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yes.
That is what Safe P is, and it's in San Angelo. So,
yes.
So you did time.
I did that. There was almost 300 women there and a million rules, and I am a rule follower. So put me in those settings, and I'm going to show you I can thrive.
So you did Safe P.
It was called, God, I forget what it's called. I don't even know, but it was...
The girl version.
It was the girl version, yes. There was a guys and a girls, and CRTC.
There you go.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. I just remember writing a letter to my mom being pissed. Get me out of here immediately. I don't belong here. This is not for me. I'm the girl from Kerrville who has no goals.
How long were you there?
Like you said, I was there for 6 months and was able to start integrating back into the community. Again, Mom and Dad have everything set up for me. The apartment, the school, the job. So I walked into things.
Yeah.
I didn't have to work really hard. And of course, they're terrified. They think this is, in their mind, they think this is setting my daughter up for success.
Yes.
But in reality, it's delaying the time of taking responsibility of how to live my life. Yeah. And so, I did 6 months. I was on paper for about a year and a half after that. I have 2 DWIs on my record, and 1 got dissolved because I completed that program successfully.
So is that where the 2 years of recovery started that you mentioned before? Or was
No,
that still
absolutely
no?
no.
You weren't trying to be in recovery.
No,
you were just trying to get.
mean, I learned about, I mean, my neighbor was always up all night and he taught me about Adderall and how to like beat through a UA. And I'm like, dude, this is I need this.
Yeah.
Like, so this is where my creative thinking was like, I can't drink because this is what happens. But so let me try now doing Adderall, Oxycontin, like any prescription pill. And it had to be prescription because that made it more.
It's not a street drug.
Not a street, yeah, I'm not a drug addict. I'm just.
Yeah.
These are doctors prescribed, just not to me.
They're made in a lab. They're very nice.
So I would like to talk about, because you were there when we had Lisa Pascarosa come and talk to the group at Recovery Unplugged, who is the mother of Justin Enoch, who was a good friend of mine who died from a drug overdose. And she is a huge advocate against parents enabling their children. And we were both so surprised after we spoke. So many clients were coming up to Lisa and saying, how do I stop my parents from enabling me? Not like I manipulate them, like they just, like, I'll go to treatment and they have this life set up for me when I get out. They're going to buy me a car. They're going to do this. This sounds like it might have been your experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when I got into real recovery, of course, when I got out of my first treatment center, my mom and dad.
Where'd you go the first time?
The first time was Serenity House in Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
And my counselor was real freaking tough. But probably the toughest person I know, who's very direct and made me mad. But yeah, I had to say no a lot at the beginning. It was difficult. And my mom and I actually argued a lot. And it was suggested to me that I had to have conversations with my mom on a designated day during the week. Because if I talk to my mom all the time, she's the most easy, God bless her little soul, but I know how to manipulate her and I know how to pull on her heartstrings. And so it was suggested that I only speak to her once a week, checking in with her. If she offered something, I would have to say no. And saying no to them was like teaching them how to treat me. Today, having 7 years, my mom still does it. Like, she's like, what do you need? Do you need the dentist paid for? Do you need this paid? And I'm like, I'm okay. She's like, what am I supposed to do? And I'm like, you're supposed to love me.
Live your life.
Live your life. And just seeing the aftermath of, not needing or not even taking, it allows them to start looking at themselves and seeing that their tactics aren't working anymore. And they start seeing like that their child is okay. They're gonna be okay, no matter what is going on. No matter if I relapse or I don't relapse, your child's gonna be okay. And the only way I learned how to break that cycle was me having to be the adult in that situation saying no. Which has allowed me to learn about insurance, learn how to sign up for school on my own, learn how to get an apartment on my own. I mean, I've learned all these things, and because the more I delayed it, the more I felt my self-esteem was low, because I hear this a lot too, is that you can't build your self-esteem if mom and dad are doing everything for you, especially at 28, 30 years old. It's like when I went in to get an apartment, I didn't know how to speak the language. I didn't know how to say, I want to rent this apartment. Here's the money. And they're like, well, here's an application and let's see if you qualify. And I'm like, what do you mean? And it's only because, my family took care of everything. It's a very great skill to have to build your confidence and your self-esteem and recovery when you start doing it for yourself.
Yeah, that's huge. I remember the first time. So my mom paid my first month's rent at the sober house, and she gave me $100, and she said very clearly to me, like, that's it. Like, don't call me if you're not sober. Like, I'm done. And because she was mad because I had to draw a boundary and tell her, like, no, I need to go to sober living. And she was mad I wasn't coming back to Laredo. Or she was hurt,
Right.
And, a month later, it was time to pay rent. And like, I remember the first time I paid my rent, it was like $350 a month. And I didn't sell any drugs. I didn't rob anybody. I didn't steal from anybody. And like, I paid this rent and like cried. Like they gave me my little receipt for my rent. And I was like, I need to frame this. Yes. Mm-hmm. And like, so often parents steal those moments from their kids. Cause like, that was huge for me to be able to do that. Like save money, not spend the money on cigarettes and eating out, and then get all the money I need and then take it and hand it to someone else.
I've never heard it put like that the parents steal that from their kids. Yeah. And that is I'm still guilty as charged for a lot of that stuff. But I did in early recovery, do absolutely that. Like I saved my money to fix my license, to buy my first car, to pay my rent. And then, little by slowly, my mom was just like, here's a little bit of money.
Yeah, sure.
Get yourself something nice.
And there's a balance. I still let mom and dad be mom and dad. If they come to my apartment and they're like, let's buy you a new trash can. And I'm like, sure. Let's get you,
Look, like, my mother will still buy groceries sometimes when she comes to visit. When I got the LASIK, she was like, I'll split it with you. Because she's like, LASIK was great for me.
And you said, okay?
Hell yeah.
Okay, good. It's not only me.
Yes.
All right.
There becomes a balance where you're like, my sponsor told it greatly to me. She's like, let your mom and dad be mom and dad, because I was like saying no to everything.
That's a great point.
It is.
All right. Well, God damn it. We should have booked more time. Anyway, Brittany, there's so much to your story. We say this all the time. But like legit, we need to have you back because there's so much more of your journey once you're in recovery that I think is really important to highlight, right? Because we've done a lot of shits and giggles today, but we'll save that for Brittany O'Malley part 2. But as tradition here on Talksicology, we like to wrap things up with something that we call rapid fire question time.
It's rapid fire question time.
All right.
Let me get situated.
Okay. I have to preface my first question with a question. Are you into like God? Do you like believe in God?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I stole this from another podcast that I was on, from Dr. Powers over at another treatment center. So you're there. It's over. You get to heaven or whatever the afterlife is, and you go up to God. What do you want God to say to you? What would you like to hear in that moment?
Well done. And then hand me a vape.
Your podcast host stole that from the Actors Studio, just so you know. So it all comes. Okay. Who's your favorite Scientologist?
Ashley Armstrong.
Oh, yeah. Good answer.
All right. Ben and Jerry's, they listen to this podcast. They hear your episode, and they're like, you know what, Brittany? We want to do a custom Brittany O'Malley Ben and Jerry's flavor. What do you put in it, and what do you want to call it?
Peanut butter, jelly, granola, and a side of a peach.
And what's it called?
O'Malley's.
With like a little pub logo on it.
The concentration that went
just focus on that.
She was elsewhere. She was talking to God. God said, well done on the flavors. Time travel vacation. You could go anywhere, any era. Where would you go and when?
This is not unique. I would definitely go to Woodstock. And I guess that was in the 70s.
Wait. Okay, I was going to ask you to specify 69 or 99. Or 95.
I'm going to go see Limp Bizkit.
Oh, no, not that one. That was terrible. That was embarrassing almost.
All right, last question. Okay. You have to choose one food that you can eat for the rest of your life. You can have any variety of this food that you like, but it has to be this food. Pizza or tacos?
Ooh.
Pizza.
What?
The wrong answer.
That's the wrong answer.
What are you going to eat? Breakfast pizza?
Yep.
Breakfast
Cold
pizza.
Breakfast. Perfect. A little bit warmed up pizza for brunch. A little bit warmer for lunch. really warm for
Like
dinner.
fresh pizza for dinner.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to give you one last little one if you want to give a
Bonus
message
question.
to Tiffany's dad for giving you those first wine or the first what was it, Smirnoff Ice. What do you say to Tiffany's dad?
I get it.
Yeah.
I would do the same.
Sir, that is illegal.
Okay.
All right, Brittany, the last thing we do is we give you a minute to just, you have the floor. You know, if you'd like to leave a message for the viewers, a message of hope, if there's anything you'd like to promote, whatever you want to do.
Okay. I just want to thank y'all for having this space for me and picking my brain. Sometimes I forget how much there is within my spirit to share. And as we reflect here together, and just bouncing off each other, it makes me remember and nostalgically know that recovery is fun. And it's such a vital part to be able to connect with others who are walking to better themselves, because as I continue to stay sober, I'm able to connect with more people, not just in the recovery community, but just the population in itself, you know? And I am very, very grateful to be able to have a past that I can look at and not feel regretful about, and a relationship with my family where I don't feel bad talking about how I was raised anymore. I don't feel like I'm talking bad about them. I feel like I'm stating this is how it was for me, and it's different now, you know? And that's the promise, because if I hadn't forgiven that piece of my life, then I wouldn't be able to talk about it so freely. And so don't shut the door on your past. Embrace it. Look at it. It's definitely a map for you to understand who you are and get to the core values and beliefs that you have in yourself. And I'm excited if I do get to come back. I enjoy these guys.
Yeah.
They're great to talk to.
You're for sure
It
coming.
was a lot of fun.
So thank you for taking the time out today to come out and be a guest. It was definitely our pleasure to have you here. To our loyal listeners, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, tell your friends, post about it on Twitter, TikTok,
Click the link
Freedom
below.
Social.
I don't know if there's a link below.
But yeah, share this all over the place. You might just help somebody find
All
their
over.
path.
Speaking of paths,
we like to say that there's 1,000 ways in
1,000 ways out.
and 1,000 ways out. And we hope you find yours.
Da-na-na-na.
Ba-na-na-na.